Hey everyone, so today we're going to break down two really important ideas you hear all the time in the climate conversation, CBDR and just transition. I know, they sound kind of technical, right? But stick with me because by the end of this, you'll see they both boil down to one simple but super powerful idea, fairness. So let's just start with a huge question, one that frames this whole thing. This is the exact question that keeps world leaders and climate negotiators up at night. When a problem is this huge, this global, figuring out who's on the hook for what, well, that's not just some small detail. It's literally everything. So you might be wondering, how in the world does the global community even start to answer a question that big? Well, they start with a core principle. You can think of it as kind of the rule of the road for all those big climate deals. And it's got an acronym, of course. It's called CBDR. So CBDR, that stands for Common but Differentiated Responsibilities. And yeah, sometimes you'll even see a little RC tacked on the end for respective capabilities. Now, I know what you're thinking. It sounds like a total contradiction, doesn't it? Common but different? What does that even mean? Well, it's actually pretty straightforward when you break it down. The idea is that, yep, climate change is a common problem for all of us. No one gets a pass. But our responsibilities are differentiated, and they're different based on two really big things. Who's historically responsible for most of the mess, and who actually has the money and the tech, the capabilities to lead the cleanup effort. Let's dig into that a little more. The common part? That's the easy bit. We all live on the same rock, we all breathe the same air, we're all in this boat together. Simple enough. But that differentiated part, oh man, that's where things get really interesting in those closed-door negotiations. It's all about looking back at history. Recognizing that the Industrial Revolution that built so much wealth for developed countries also pumped tons of carbon into the atmosphere. So the principle basically says, look, the countries that contributed the most over time and who now have the most resources, well, they need to step up and carry a bigger part of the load. It's not about everyone doing the exact same thing. It's about everyone doing their fair share. Okay, so that's CBDR. It's the big picture principle for how countries should work together. But what about the people? The actual folks whose jobs and lives are caught up in this massive shift. How do we make sure that moving to a green economy doesn't just create a whole new set of problems for them? Well, that's exactly where our second big idea comes in, the just transition. This is where the high-level ideas get real. A just transition is all about making sure that when we switch from fossil fuels to clean energy, we don't accidentally throw entire communities under the bus. It means that a coal miner, for example, isn't just told, sorry, your job's gone. It means they get retrained, they get support, and they get a real shot at a good job in the new green economy. It's about making sure that the clean energy future we're building is for everyone, not just people who can afford fancy solar panels. And this is so important. It's not some nice-to-have add-on. It's supposed to be baked into the plan from the very start. Okay, so now we have our two big pieces of the puzzle. We've got CBDR, the international rule about who should lead, and we have the just transition, the game plan for making it fair for people on the ground. Now, you might think of them as separate things, but they're not, at all. In fact, they're completely connected. You really can't have one without the other. Think of them as two sides of the same coin. Let me show you how they link up. It really flows like this. Step 1, you have the principle, CBDR. That sets the stage. It answers the why and the who. Why support is needed and who should provide it, which is mainly the developed nations. Okay, so then in step 2, that principle gets turned into something real. Money and technology start to flow. But then comes the most important part, step 3. The just transition is the how. It's the playbook for how you use that money and tech to make sure the change is fair, that it actually helps workers and communities instead of hurting them. So as we're starting to pull all this together, you have to get this one thing. This whole focus on fairness, it's not just some feel-good, idealistic dream. It is completely pragmatic. It's about what will actually work. Honestly, it might be the only way this whole global effort has a chance of succeeding. I mean, think about it. You can invent the most amazing, efficient solar panel the world has ever seen. But if entire countries feel like the whole deal is rigged against them, if workers and whole towns feel like they're just being left to rust, then the cooperation you need, it's gonna crumble. It'll just fall apart. Because at the end of the day, trust is the fuel for global climate action. And principles like CBDR and just transition, that's how you build that trust. Which, of course, leaves us with the biggest question of all. We pretty much have the technology we need for a green future. That's not the hard part anymore. The real challenge, well, it's a human one, isn't it? It's a test. Can we actually work together? Can we accept that we have different roles to play? And can we put people, real people, at the absolute heart of what is probably the biggest transformation in human history? The question isn't just can we make our future green, is can we make it just? Because how we answer that, well, that's going to define everything.